The first thing I noticed was my toothbrush. It was wet. I hadn't used it since that morning. I'd been at work for 9 hours. Nobody else had a key to my apartment. At least, that's what I thought. I stood in that bathroom for a long time, just staring, trying to find an explanation that made sense. I couldn't, and that was the beginning of the worst 3 weeks of my life. My name is Mia. I'm 27. I live alone in a 1-bedroom apartment in Capitol Hill, Seattle. I've been there for about 2 years. It's a 3rd-floor unit in a 4-story building. Key fob entry on the main door. Deadbolt and chain on my apartment door. I work as a project coordinator, 9 to 6, Monday through Friday. I'm out of the apartment by 8:15 every morning and back between 6:30 and 7. I liked living alone. That's important to understand. I was used to it. I knew every sound my apartment made. I knew where I left things. I'm organized, not obsessively, but enough that I'd notice if something was out of place. I'd been living this way for 2 years, and nothing had ever felt wrong, until it did. The first thing I noticed before the toothbrush was the kitchen window. I never open it. I moved in during winter, and I just never got into the habit. But one afternoon I came home, and it was cracked open about 2 inches. I figured I must have done it without thinking. I closed it. I forgot about it. The second thing was the couch cushions. I have 3 on my couch, a gray one on the left, a blue one in the middle, a gray one on the right. I always leave them in that order. One Tuesday I came home, and the blue one was on the left. It's a small thing. It sounds ridiculous even saying it out loud. But it wasn't where I'd left it, and I live alone. Then the toothbrush. Then, 3 days later, a smell. Not a bad smell. That's what made it strange. It was a clean smell, like a different soap. Like someone who used a different brand than me had recently showered in my bathroom. I stood in my shower and inhaled and thought, that is not my smell. That is someone else's smell. In my shower, in my apartment. I started paying closer attention. I made a list. Over the next week I noticed the volume on my TV had been changed. I always leave it at 22. It was at 31. The yogurt in my fridge that I was saving was gone. Not thrown away, not dropped, gone, with the spoon washed and back in the drawer. My laptop, which I keep closed on my desk, was open when I got home on Thursday. The charging cable was plugged in. The laptop scared me more than anything else, because it wasn't just that someone had opened it. When I sat down and moved the mouse, it woke up immediately. It hadn't gone to sleep, which meant it had been used recently, very recently. I checked the browser history. It had been cleared. I checked the recently opened files. Cleared. Whoever had used my laptop had been careful. That kind of careful doesn't happen by accident. I started setting traps, not dramatic ones, small, unnoticeable tests. I placed a single hair across the inside of my front door at ankle height, stuck to both sides with a tiny piece of clear tape. If anyone opened the door while I was gone, it would break. Every morning I replaced it. Every evening I checked it. For the first 3 days, it was intact. On the fourth day, it was broken. I set a second test. I downloaded a free motion detection app on an old phone I had, propped it on my bookshelf facing the living room, and left it recording when I went to work. When I came home, I fast-forwarded through the footage. At 1:17 p.m., 4 hours after I'd left, the motion sensor triggered. Someone walked through my living room. I could see them. Just for a second, dark jacket, moving toward the kitchen, then out of frame. I watched that clip 40 times. I couldn't make out a face. The image was too low quality, but I could see the shape. Someone real in my apartment, in the middle of the day, using my things, eating my food, showering in my bathroom, sitting on my couch, clearing my laptop history, and then leaving before I got home, every single day. I called the police. They came that evening. They searched the apartment. And then one of them, a woman, older, she'd been doing this a long time. She asked me if I had a storage space. I said yes. A small closet at the end of the hallway, behind a door I barely ever open because it's just boxes and old stuff. She opened it. I watched her go still. She turned and told me to wait in the hallway. Inside that closet, pushed behind my boxes and covered with a blanket I didn't recognize, there was a sleeping pad. A rolled-up sleeping pad with a small pillow, a water bottle, a phone charger, different brand than mine, plugged into the outlet behind the boxes, and a plastic bag with food, a granola bar wrapper, a half-empty bottle of vitamins. The kind of things someone packs when they're staying somewhere for a while. Someone had been living in my storage closet, sleeping there during the day, while I was at work, going out through my front door before I came home, and coming back after I left each morning. The police found no one in the apartment that night. Whoever it was, they had gone before I called. The building manager pulled the key fob logs. My fob had accessed the building each morning. And so had another fob, one registered to a previous tenant who had supposedly returned it when they moved out 18 months ago. They hadn't, or someone still had it. They never identified who it was. The fob is still unaccounted for. The police made a report. The building changed the fob system. I moved out 3 weeks later. I couldn't stay there. Not because I was certain someone would come back, but because every time I came home I'd stand in the doorway and think about all the days I'd walked in and gone about my evening, making dinner, watching TV, getting ready for bed, while someone was 14 feet away in a closet, quiet, waiting for me to fall asleep. My new apartment is smaller. I check the storage closet every single day when I get home. I check it before I go to bed. It takes 10 seconds, and I know it's unnecessary. I know whoever was in my old apartment is not in this one. I know the locks here are different. I know I'm safe. I just can't stop checking, because the thing that stays with me isn't that someone was in my apartment. It's that they were so careful, so considerate. They used my things and put them back. They cleaned up after themselves. They tried not to disturb anything. That kind of effort, that kind of attention, that's not random. That's someone who had been watching me, studying me, long before they ever stepped inside. I still think about the toothbrush. That's what started it. a wet toothbrush. Something so small, you'd never think twice about it. That's what they almost got away with. One wet toothbrush. And if I hadn't noticed, if I'd been a little less particular, a little less aware, I might still be living there. And they might still be in that closet, waiting.